Today is, of course, all about International Men's Day and is once again encouraging men to open up about their feelings. But the one thing that us blokes are apparently still struggling to talk about is grief. Now, 80% of men say grief left them feeling alone. Over half admit to bottling up their feelings after losing someone. The statistics for women tell a very different story. So do men and women grieve differently? That's what we're going to discuss on the panel today. And Jeff, I'm going to start with you because we've lived so much of your life with you, the happy times, but also the sad times. So you know what you're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the boys lost their mum, I guess whilst they're boys, they're not men yet. Oh, actually, they're just becoming men. I've just realised that they're 20 and 21 because it's gone ever so quickly. But look, I think at first, looking at them, they sort of for the 6 or 7 months after the loss of their mum, they actually didn't really exhibit too much of the kind of behaviour that I was expecting. And then all of a sudden their world completely turned upside down and it was chaos, absolutely chaos. And look, we've all got a coping strategy, I think, that's probably more inherent within men than it is in women. And women just seem to be really good at being human and natural and just being like, something really bad has just happened. I'm going to need to talk about this. I'm going to need to connect with people that are close to me because I know that that's what I'm going to need in order to get the support that I want to get through this. Whereas boys, lads, dads, you know, we'll try and sweep it under. We'll try and avoid it for as long as possible and hope that we get away with it and that we just, you know, it just sort of, we step over it or we leave it behind. And the truth is, like, even I, as someone that didn't feel worthy of grieving for Jade, because actually I hadn't been with her for about 2 years at that point, I avoided what I was likely to be going through, which was a really challenging time for anyone, especially like, you know, someone who wasn't even 30 years of age yet and all that responsibility in front of you. But I made it all about the kids. And I think that's probably really, you know, a typical response for any parent. And of course, we would put them first. But I remember coming on here once, actually, and it was the guys showing like a video montage of Jade and some of her programmes. And I hadn't really ever considered how I felt about losing her and her not being in the boys' life. And I just remembered it done me. Like, I was stood out there ready to come on and I was like in tears and I was like, I've overlooked something here. I've been in a bit of denial myself, even though I've spoke about wanting to make sure that the kids can have therapy and that the kids know that it's an open discussion in the home so that they don't have to feel like they've got to avoid it at all. But the truth is, it's always going to catch up on you. You're always going to have to pay that debt to yourself. Those feelings don't just evaporate, which is the hope. They actually build and build and build until one day, all of a sudden, it'll be something completely random that will set you off. Then all of a sudden you realise that you've got this absolute build-up of unresolved feelings and trauma that you haven't been able to talk about.
And for you, Jeff, because the boys were so young when Jade passed away, God rest her, I guess as they get older, they have to kind of try and deal with that as an adult because they're so young, they might not have been able to make sense with it. And in turn, you have to guide them through that as well. So it's your grief is constantly changing, isn't it?
Yes, and I thought that it was my job to alleviate them of their grief, right? That is the most unrealistic thing that we can pressure ourselves with. Any child who loses a parent or someone they're particularly close to will not only have their childhood to deal with the challenges that come with that as a result, but also probably a lot of their adult life until they decide, like I did in my 30s, I'm going to go and do the work because I don't fancy feeling like I do. And I also don't want to keep seeing the effects of unspent trauma on my relationships and on things like that. So I just think at some point you have to be accountable for the fact that whilst you didn't ask for a lot of the things that happen to us in life, it's ultimately up to us to decide not where it ends, but the beginning of the end, if you like. So that's when I started getting some help myself. And I think for a lot of men, if I could say one thing that would help anybody, it's that we will fare so much better, whether it's losing a loved one, whether it's something difficult in the workplace, or there's so many things that can go wrong. A lot of it sometimes on mental health. To be vulnerable is actually a strength, and that's what helps you to go from where you are feeling like, oh my God, I've got all of this stuff and I don't know what to do with it, to actually being able to slowly but surely just sort of lend it away and speak about it and let it sort of disperse and lessen slightly. So sharing vulnerability or showing vulnerability feels like the most un-male thing to do. It's almost like what we've been conditioned not to do, and generationally, there's also a sort of stigma there. Don't do that, you know, because you won't be employable. Your friends will go off you, and maybe so will your partners. The truth is, until you do that and start acting a little bit more human, you'll struggle to get rid of this and have a big impact on a lot of things that happen to you in your life.
Well said. That might be some of the most important advice you pick up this week, Jeff. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a strange thing with blokes. We think we have to fix everything. And I think when there's a sudden death, we go into kind of fixing mode. Sadly, we've had a lot of loss in my life over the past 3 or 4 years, and a year and a half ago, a close family member lost their life. And I remember clicking into fixing. Fix. And it took about a year, Brian, and then suddenly one day, boom, wow, just a day of it, bawling my eyes out, which I needed to do. I should have done it 11 months beforehand, but you're so busy trying to make everything right. Sometimes you don't have to make it right, but it's a very normal thing for blokes. I see a lot of people, particularly of our kind of era, Brian, who, you know, oh, it's okay, I got this. And only 6 months after maybe a parent died or a friend died, then they collapse.
It was me, it was a year. It was a year afterwards. My father died, the year before, and I am 63, and my dad was 59, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I had 6 months of saying goodbye to him. He had bowel cancer, and so it wasn't immediate, which is even worse. But anyway, so a year after, I think I've grieved. I think I've moved on. I cried a bit. I spoke to people. I read a little book. Right, I'm OK now. Let's move on. No, it wasn't the case. Suddenly, my daughter was quite young then. This is 27 years ago now. So, and I'm in one of those ball pens, and my daughter gets caught in one of those, and there was a little bit of perspex there. Don't worry, I'll get you out. And I'm getting up there. Suddenly, I'm having this panic attack. I'd never had a panic attack in my life. I had no idea what it was. I'm totally out of control. I can't breathe. And then eventually it passed. And then, of course, it got more and more over weeks. And prior to this, for about 26 weeks, I was hosting the National Lottery. And then live in front of millions of people. Suddenly, I'm going through all this. I can't pick my kids up from school. I'm in such a state. I'm worrying that talking to the mums, I'm going to get a full-on panic attack. Then I go, and fortunately, I'm in a position, I'll go and get some help. And I remember him saying to me at the beginning, he said, did you really think that something like this would happen and then you could just move on? You know, there's something, your brain is a lot more powerful and you haven't really got total control of it. There's moments where he goes, hang on, you cannot run away from me. We need to address this. And he said to me, you try to put a full stop there. It doesn't work like that. You can't go full stop, move on. No. This is something that you have to let out, and you're like a champagne bottle. You've kept everything down. You've got to learn to let it out. And another thing he said, your dad, it gets me quite emotional, this, he said, your dad has left you a gift, and it's for you to find that gift. I'm going, what gift? As years go on, and as time went on, I realised what the gift is. I haven't had a drink for 21 years. I don't drink. I've never drunk. No. Because I was in a position where, you know, if you've got anxiety, the worst thing you can do is drink and try and cover it up.
The worst thing and the easiest thing.
And you can never run away from yourself. You've got to go and talk this out, go and get some help, and learn to cry, learn to let it out, because as men, we try and bottle it all up. And you look at a child and look how happy a kid is, because they whack their arm and, this upset me, because they're letting it out. They're letting it out, and it has the right sort of endorphins in it, if that's the right word, to, you know, relieve that stress. And it's good to sit there and have a blimmin' good cry.
It's all right. Jordan, you're a bit younger than us, OK?
Yeah.
So, you know, parents are still at healthy ages, etc.
The thing that terrifies me is a unexpected one or a parent or, you know, I won't lie, I've found myself, I'll be driving along listening to sad songs thinking about my dad who's, you know, he's at my house waiting for me, like waiting for me to come home and say hello. Right. I'm crying in the car at the thought of him just not even being here. And I'm like, I walk in, he's like, you're right. I'm like, oh, thank God you're here. Like, it's crazy, but I think it's so lovely to hear you three who have all been through that and also not have to feel like I hear it, but I have to go, I have to be the strong one and do this and do that. I hear it, I can go, OK, when the time comes, we all hope and pray it never does, but it's part of life, right? It's going to come around at some point. When it does, hopefully I can be in a position, and we all deal with things differently. You know, I'm not saying you have to scream it from the rooftops and tell everyone, but hopefully I can be in a position like you guys have very bravely today, share that emotion and get through it in a healthier way rather than be that champagne bottle, try and boil it up. So thank you guys. Genuinely. Thank you.
Well said. There's plenty of services that can help you if you are struggling after losing someone, and you can find them at itv.com/helplines.